welcome to lesson 109. This is about multiplying decimals. Now, the explanation for multiplying decimals, it's same, well, first of all, to start, it's the exact same thing as we have been doing with 1-digit, 2-digit, and 3-digit multiplication. Exact same multiplication steps. The only difference is when you get to your final product, the answer, and where we put our decimal points. That's the only difference that we're going to be focusing on. So whenever I have 1/10, and I want to find what is 1/10 of 1/10, and key word, remember that I've taught you, the key word of means that it's multiplying. So if I want to find what 1/10 of 1/10 is, there's one picture of what 1/10 would look like, and I want to split my tenths up into 10 equal parts. So when I find what 1/10 of 1/10 is, this ends up being 1/100th. This would be a picture of 100 little blocks put together, and that would be my tenth right here, split this column, split up into 10 equal parts. So this is what it would look like with fractions, how we're used to. If I went 1/10 of 1/10, it turns into 1/10 times 1/10. Multiply numerators straight across. 1 times 1 is 1. 10 times 10 is 100. And this is what it would look like in decimal form. So this is our new format. We can now multiply decimals. 1/10, because I have a 1 in the tens place, times another tenth, 1/10. I multiply, and this is how I get 100th. Notice that my decimal point doesn't go in my tens place. I only do 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 0 is 0. And my decimal point's actually going to go 2 places. I'm going to have 2 decimal places, basically. So 2 decimal places. So this is how we're going to solve it. I've got a few examples that we're going to work out together. I want you to copy these problems down. You don't have to write all of this unless this is going to help you. But I do want you to write these problems down and the answers as I'm recording them. So I have 12/100ths times 6. I'm going to do 6 times 2, which is 12. Carry the 1, bring down the 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Now notice, with my 12/100ths, I have 2 digits to the right of the decimal. So I have 2 decimal places. In my 6, I have 0 digits to the right of the decimal. Now that means that I just count my decimal place values, 1, 2, and that means I'm going to end up with 2 digits to the right of the decimal. 1, 2, my decimal point is going to be right here. So I can basically even count from here and work to the left and count 2 places because I have 2 decimal places, or I can just know that there's 2 digits to the right. That means my decimal point needs to be on the left. I can add a 0 here, or I can not have a 0. That's up to you as a personal preference. My answer is 72/100ths. 12/100ths times 6 is 72/100ths. So again, next problem. I have 25 times 3/10. 25 has 0 digits to the right of the decimal, meaning I have no decimal point. And 3/10 has 1 digit to the right of the decimal. I have 1 decimal place value. So my final product is going to have 1 digit to the right of the decimal. I'm going to only have 1 decimal place value. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And then I'm done. I don't need to multiply my zeros because I'll have all zeros. So I need 1 digit to the right of the decimal. There's my 1 digit. Decimal point goes right here. So I'm counting my decimal place values. That's how I get 1 decimal place value, 1 decimal place value. There goes the decimal point. So after I multiply, you need to be sure to count how many decimal places that we have, and that shows you where it goes in the answer. Now I have 15/100ths times 9/10ths. So both are going to be decimal points. I have 2 digits to the right of the decimal for 15/100ths, and I have 1 digit to the right of the decimal for 9/10ths. So my total is going to be 3 digits to the right. I count my decimal place values. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to have 3 decimal place values. I'm going to use a darker color down here. 9 times 4 is 45. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 4 is 13. And 9 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. I want 3 digits to the right of the decimal. 1, 2, 3. My decimal point goes right here. And I can add a 0. So I have 135 thousandths as my product. So looking at these examples, be sure, most important thing, multiply first, then count your decimal place values to know where your decimal point goes. So there's 2 steps you need to learn how to do in order to multiply decimal places. And also recognize the difference whenever we add and subtract decimal points. When we add and subtract decimal points have to be lined up. They have to be lined up in a straight line. Whenever I'm multiplying decimals, they do not have to be lined up because I count my decimal place values to know where my decimal point goes. That will change. So we've got to recognize those differences. We'll be practicing those differences and making sure that those stick in our head. So for the practice set problems I want you to do, A, B, and C, I have 3 tenths times 4, 6 tenths times 3, 12 hundredths times 12. And I'll be grading your notes as well as your practice set problems as a participation grade in class. Thank you very much for listening.